you look at the majority of those music festivals, if you take Strawberry out of it, which is probably 12 to 15 of those music festivals, if you take MIDI out of it, if you take those two, I'd say the majority of the other ones are not that far removed from the kind of traditional gala concerts. It's just a slightly different format, you know. The big pop stars on stage with short set times, you know, maybe 2 or 3 international artists thrown in the mix. You know, even Strawberry, which is probably the most international of the Chinese festivals, you're still looking at 8 to 12 international acts on a bill that's probably 180 artists deep. So you're probably only looking at 8 to 10% of the artists are international. All the rest are Chinese or greater Chinese. I'd say that there are probably only, I'd argue, 20 or 30 music festivals in China that are real music festivals as opposed to kind of new generation gala concerts. There's a huge amount of money in the system at the moment that's looking for investment opportunities. Modern Sky created almost a blueprint for how to grow a festival, how to sell bits of it to investors, how to grow it further, sell more, further sell more. And as soon as we're talking money like that, you know, lots and lots and lots of people come sniffing around, because there are relatively few of those kind of success stories out there. And so suddenly it's like, well, everyone should be investing in a music festival. I desperately want to build a business that's sustainable, whereas I feel a lot of the businesses here are very much kind of, you know, build it to sell it, or build it to get more investment. That's a shame. Everyone up to, you know, 99.9% of the population pre-2007, it was all, you know, Cantonese pop, Mandarin pop, you know, led by kind of Taiwan and Hong Kong. And that was all people had access to, that was all people knew, that was all people understood. A little bit of Japan, I suppose, but not really very much.
This is a voyage of discovery for Maximo Park more than anything else.
This moment in time in like 2007, I think probably, where China went from like zero knowledge really of anything that was non-state sanctions to the ability to really see and interface with almost everything in the world.
Local press.
Do you have Maximo Park? Maximo Park?
No, we don't.
Never?
So whereas, you know, 10 years ago it was you know, our first festival, Modern Sky's first festival, MIDI had been running for sort of 5 years before that. But there was very little to choose between. I mean, MIDI was a little bit more metal, a little bit more domestic. Modern Sky was a bit more modern, a bit more hipster. We were trying to go a little bit more international, you know, but really there wasn't a lot to choose, you know. I'd argue that now, 10 years on, the festivals are starting to define themselves. They're needing to define themselves, particularly in Shanghai or you know, tier 1 cities. You know, Storm has come out as this huge kind of, we are the EDM festival of China. You know, we're very much this idea of lifestyle. You know, it's not so much, it's about the music for sure, but it's not all about the music. It's about, you know, coming to a place that's very different to your normal life and experiencing new things and learning and, you know, whatever else. Simple Life is very much about simple life. You know, it's very much about, you know, kind of ecological and you know, living the right way and love and light and all that kind of stuff. But he sees that as a good, safe way to present a festival that is the government can understand and can kind of support, and the people can kind of understand and feel good about. And I'd argue that a lot of the other ones, you know, Strawberry, as I said, is now owned pretty much by venture capitalists, and that's just all about lowering costs and increasing profits. MIDI has gone off on its own little tangent. you know, which I love the MIDI guys enormously, but they're very much kind of, you know, they're doing crazy festivals in caves. Literally, the main stage was in a cave 1 kilometer in from the side of the mountain, so you had to walk 1 kilometer into this cave that could hold 10,000 people, and you know they're into seriously crazy shit, which I love. They're kind of the eccentric guys who just do it their own way and don't seem to worry about anything else, and I love that. I think the regional ones are still, you know, very much limited to one city or whatever, but they're all, you know, those tier 2 cities are probably 8 to 10 years behind Beijing and Shanghai in terms of understanding, in terms of experience. But I'd argue that, you know, Beijing has definitely fallen foul, is like the first casualty, the first major casualty of the new regime. Shanghai has become the new kind of poster child for that, but I think only because the government here is a little bit more open and there's more money down here and people are more willing to spend. Again, I'd say that it's overkill. I'd say that a lot of them need to die because they're not adding any value. You know, we've got the Expo Park, which has a festival in every weekend for 3 months from September through to November. There are now probably 40 festivals at Expo Park a year, and it's just it's a perfect little encapsulation of how China develops, right? It's like, that looks good, we'll just copy it. And we'll do the same thing, and it's like, no, you have to add value, you have to define your own values, you have to create your own thing. You can't just copy what someone else did and expect it to work. Start small and build your audience, your community. You have to develop with a community, you know, you have to build a community, you know, that's where all the good things start, right? And building a community that can then expand into something bigger. But I find a lot of, you know, the idea of grassroots development still doesn't really exist here to the degree that it exists everywhere else. As always, talk to the venue owners, talk to the local bands, you know, listen to what they have to say, be guided a little bit, go to a bunch of shows, you know, make sure that you understand your market before you throw a bunch of money at it. They're still not very good at doing their own self-promo. Like we've been having these fights for the last 10 years, you know, about, you know, a lot of the bands will just turn up, take their money, play and leave, right? But for me, there's always been more to it than that. They should be taking flyers, they should be helping with promotion, they should be, you know, working online to give more value, because that's, you know, so find the bands that, you know, are doing that, because there are some, not very many, and make sure that you work with them. And, you know, keep your costs as low as possible, because the margins are super thin at the moment. You know, they're trying to regulate it, and they're actually bringing in measures to make sure that these things run a bit better, because, you know, 10 years ago when we started doing it, there were no rules. Like, there was no fire codes, there were no security, you know, requirements. You know, it was just like, oh yeah, you just go do it, you know, and there was a sort of a complete lack of any regulation almost. And now it's, you know, as these things grow, they have to develop regulation, they have to develop kind of safety, because, you know, my biggest worry is that with these relatively big crowds now, you know, there have been accidents all over the world, and one of my worries is that, you know, one thing goes wrong here, you know, one major or even, you know, minor issue regarding death or injury or whatever else, and they might just put a stop to the whole thing. Well, I mean, we're in China, right? I mean, China's a pretty big pitfall. I say that in the nicest possible way, but, you know, the system does not encourage what we do. You know, we're kind of fighting every step of the way. Not just me, all of my domestic peers, we're all fighting every step of the way. You know, the idea of mass big events with thousands of people, you know, scares the shit out of local police, scares the shit out of local government. You know, we're really fighting the system in this respect.